I find it amusing that people think President Trump looked weak in that meeting yesterday with Putin. This is not an endorsement of Trump. I don't like politics. I don't like politicians. I do like America, however. I wanted to do good. And when I see things that I think are okay or that I think might be going right, I call them out. When I see things that are not going right, I call them out also. So don't go commenting down below that I love Trump or whatever. I don't like any of them. As far as I'm concerned, we have a one-party political system. Each gets 4 years, sometimes 8. Nothing changes. Your life doesn't change. My life doesn't change. So all any of us are trying to do is to survive and take care of our families. So, and that cycle will continue. Nothing's going to change. Now, do me a favor, please like, subscribe, and share the video. And if you wouldn't mind, leave a comment down below. Even if it's nasty or negative, try not to be nasty. I don't like nasty, but give me something constructive. I want to talk about the meeting between Putin and Trump in Alaska. But I first need to tell you a story, something that happened to me personally. I was there, I witnessed it, and it changed my life. Years ago, I was in the middle of a business deal with a group of other people. And this deal was just about done. And one of the principals on our team, much older than me, obviously had a lot more experience in business and dealing with imbeciles. And I was not very young, but I was younger. And I didn't have the experience. Well, anyway, something was leaked out of our group and got back to this competitor, let's call him that. And he started negotiating the deal away from us. He started negotiating behind our back with the entity that we were dealing with. And it came out of left field, came out of nowhere. So I found out about it and I was angry. I was pissed. I wanted to punch the guy. And the principal in our group, the senior principal, with all the experience, said, no, just hold on for a second. And 2 days later or 3 days later, he contacted me and he said, we're going to meet with this guy. I'm like, meet with him? For what? To take his frickin' head off? Don't ever take anybody's head off, by the way. But I said, okay, have it your way. But I'm not sure how we're going to get anything done here. So, make a long story short, we met at my person's office. And he had a beautiful office. We met in the facility. He opened the office door. The competitor, imbecile, whatever you want to call him, he walked in first. My guy walked in second, and I walked in third. And as we walked in there, this guy had the absolute cojones to walk behind the executive desk and sit down. And I thought, that takes big giant balls. And I wanted to react, but it's not my office. What am I going to do? And I expected my guy to react, but what he actually did was he allowed it to happen, never even changed his facial expression. And then he pointed to a chair, another chair in the office, and he said, you sit there. Me, meaning me, very politely. He's like, hey, you just go ahead and sit there. Then he sat on another chair, the lowest, it was actually a folding chair that you'd have for like a catering job or something. And he sat on the lowest, most cheap, most miserable looking chair in that room. And he sat down and proceeded to start talking about the weather. And then he started talking about the history of an area that they were both familiar with and some stuff about the businesses we were in. And there was some laughing and joking and kidding around and this, that, and the other. And there was no real business discussed at all. We hit on a few points, the possibilities of us all going into this deal, and I wasn't having any part of that, period. I would have walked out of the room if that had been agreed on, because that wasn't what I wanted to do. And by the way, I was the one that brought this deal to the table. So it technically was my deal. Even though I wouldn't have had not that I wouldn't have had the ability, but I knew there were a lot of people smarter than me. And it's very important that you surround yourself with people smarter than you. That's how you learn. That's how you get experience. And when people like that become your mentors, consider that a gift. Anyway, how the conversation ended was the person in my entity literally got up, very calmly got up, and he had a jacket on, and he reached in his jacket pocket and he pulled out an envelope. And inside the envelope was a check that I would later find out how much the amount was. And he handed the person the envelope. And the first thing he said to him was, listen, you don't have to look at that right now. You don't even have to accept it. But he said, later on, when you have time, have a look. Let's see if we can work something out. And let's get together again, in a couple of days or whatever it is. We'll take it from there. Let's see how it goes. Very calm. Then we all left there. We had something to eat. And the meeting ended. We walked away. A couple of days later, there was another call from the gentleman. There was a little more money discussed, and he was handed that money, and he walked away from the deal. He didn't deserve a single penny. Nothing. Zero. He deserved nothing. He deserved actually to be kicked out of the room on his ass. But we ended up securing the deal. That was the goal. The goal was to get the deal done. The goal was to forget about being a tough guy and being submissive for a change, and letting the other person think that they have all the power. And then very kindly coming back in around the other side and making the deal. We benefited greatly from that deal over time. And as it turns out, the amount of money we paid this nuisance to go away was minuscule in comparison to what it did for us, for our families, for employees, for the community, period. Everything was great. Now I want to take you back to the tarmac in Alaska. When Trump arrived there, he was the first guy on the carpet. Putin walked over. Trump reached out. He grabbed his hand. If you look very closely, he pulled Putin towards him, almost like pulled his hand to his belly in a hold, a strong hold. And then the real power move, if you notice, Trump's left hand reached over and grabbed him by the elbow. Now, the pulling in part was the power. I'm in charge. I'm pulling you in. I'm in charge. Touching the elbow was, hey, we're going to get this done, man. Let's work this out. Here we are, two guys. Boom. Now let's go. Now they turn around and they walk towards the podium where they're going to stand. And this is what nobody noticed, including the media. And the camera angle makes it very awkward to see, but I saw it. Trump, as they're walking, is ever so slightly behind Putin. He's not walking ahead of him. He's slightly behind him. Now, he has given Putin the power. Putin is now in charge. He's given him that. He's allowed him to be in charge. And then a second later, it flips again. And you see Putin's head turn to the right. And he doesn't just turn to the right once, twice. He actually does it 3 times. And he's looking up at this enormous B-52 bomber above his head. Now, he's seen the B-52 bomber before in videos, I'm sure in his military briefings. They know everything about that plane. They probably don't know how it works exactly, but they know a lot about it. But that's the first time in his life that he sees it. And it's literally directly above his head. And it's loud. Those planes, those fighter jets, they are really, really loud. In case you've never seen one that close. I have, many times. It's really loud. It's very intimidating. And then you see Putin turn around to look at Trump. That's the moment you notice that Trump is way behind Putin. So Trump has made the power move. Now Putin looks around at Trump. I'm not sure what he's thinking, but he realizes in that moment a statement has been made. And then Trump reaches over and kind of taps him. In other words, hey, we're good, man. We're good. Let's have fun. You know, I showed you mine. You showed me yours. Here we go. And then the next real power move, and it's so funny that the media didn't understand this. And it even shocked me, frankly. As I'm watching the stage, and who comes out first? Putin. And immediately, the media jump all over that. How could Trump look so weak? Why would he let this guy on the stage first? How dare he? That, my friends, is a powerful man acting really submissive. He lets Putin speak. He gave a big bullshit speech. And at the end of that speech, he gave the bullshit part about meeting Trump in Moscow. Which, by the way, the military, the advisors, nobody would ever allow, well, I won't say they wouldn't allow it, but that would be very, very hard to pull off. But notice, Trump didn't say no. He said, well, I'm sure somebody will be really mad at me, but hey, you never know, type of thing. And then, of course, obviously Trump had made his speech, didn't really say much in his speech, and then the meeting ended. And both men walked off the stage. There were no questions. The reason there were no questions, once again, we all know Trump loves to talk. I'm sick of hearing the guy talk and answer questions, and answer them long-windedly. But that was another win for Putin. Putin does not like answering questions. He certainly would be very uncomfortable answering questions in that room. That was another submissive move on Trump's part. In other words, you're off the hook now, Vlad. We're both out of here. We're done with this charade. Because, let's face it, people, all that was a charade. We don't know what's going to come out of it. Hopefully something good will come out of it. Nobody believes it will. But I can guarantee you this. Yesterday, you didn't see a weak man. You saw an extremely powerful man act submissively, which is very important for every one of us to do. The other thing that was missed at the beginning was when Trump began his meeting, he highlighted the fact that Putin's people were there, his people were there, including business people from both Russia and the United States. The key point there is, whether you like it or not, American corporations were doing a lot of business with Russia. People forget, McDonald's got thrown out, Starbucks got thrown out. Who else? Dunkin' Donuts, somebody else. There was a bunch of them got thrown out. I can guarantee you there was more business discussed in that room than there was peace. Because you have to give something in order to get anything done. Every negotiation begins with you being submissive and giving. If you are the first person in the room to give, most of the time, unless you're dealing with a complete jerk, you will end up winning that negotiation. So what did Trump do? He very politely got up in the back room and he handed Putin a check, just like my friend did. Now, like I said, I don't know how this is going to end. And there's another video that needs to be done on how I think it's going to end. I don't have a clue. If I was that smart, I'd probably be there in the meeting, helping him end it. But I want to tell you this. I believe that was a good meeting. If they find a pathway to peace or a ceasefire, it will end up being one of the greatest meetings of all time. If they end up not finding a pathway to peace, and Putin continues to take over Ukraine, you know that all you were doing was dealing with a complete animal. And although I think Putin is an animal in many ways, I don't think he's a stupid animal. So let's see what happens. Tell me what you think. Give me your take. I find this stuff fascinating. I hope it ends well. I have enormous respect for powerful people who have the ability to be submissive. And I sure wish that we had more of that in our society. You don't take power. You don't take respect. You earn it. And you usually earn it by what you give, not by what you take. Thanks for watching.